Hey, welcome to another episode of the Not Scrum Dumb podcast. I'm your host, Andreanna Marshall, professional Scrum trainer, and that's my amazing host.
Grand Scrum Master Scott, ladies and gentlemen.
So today we're going to be talking about SAFe. It's not something we typically talk about on this channel, but it's sort of a part of the Agile family. I guess we'll talk about that. It depends on who you ask. What we're going to do today, there are some people that love SAFe. There are some people that are totally opposed to it. I may fall in the more indifferent category. We're going to talk about what SAFe is, what are things that people are saying in terms of why it's so positive, and then what are things that people are saying in terms of why they don't like SAFe. And we'll provide you some information. Ultimately, it is up to you to determine if this is something you want to do, if you like to do. We're just trying to provide the information today and some of our experience in terms of using SAFe. So, what is SAFe? The Scaled Agile Framework, which is also called SAFe, is a framework for scaling Agile principles and methods to large organizations. Agile itself it emphasizes flexibility, collaboration, customer centric, and incremental progress. The founders of SAFe were trying to bridge the gap and help large organizations become agile, especially if they had multiple teams. So, SAFe does provide a structured and even customizable approach to address this challenge. It offers a set of workflow patterns that help align teams, coordinate work, and deliver value more efficiently at scale. All right, so now you know what SAFe is. So let's talk about our experiences, and maybe Scott, you could talk about some of the good, the bad, the ugly, and then we can go from there.
Let's start off with the good. I think Scaled Agile Framework is trying their best to solve a problem in our industry. And what I'm thinking about when I say that is I'm thinking about the United States government, probably is the biggest employer here in the United States of America. I can see with that much bureaucracy that it's going to be hard to become agile. Scaled Agile Framework is a huge platform for the government to use. So I would say that would be the good. The bad is really more centered around I see a lot of companies that I don't know if it's actually scaled agile framework way or is their modified way. And to give you an example of what I mean is I'm thinking about Scrum versus Spotify model. Some people will look at that and say they look similar, but hey, at least Spotify said, hey, we're not going to call it Scrum, we're going to call it Spotify, even though it may look, feel, sound the same or whatever. So when I think about scaled agile framework, just to be unbiased, for example, the company I'm with now, it looks and feel and smell like scaled agile framework. But okay, we know that Safe has trains. This company came in and said, hey, we're going to use another agile framework. I'm like, okay, what are we going to use? We're going to do journeys. What the hell is that? Well, other platforms call it a train. I say, well, okay, won't you just hire people like me, SPC, to come in and train you how to do this thing properly so that you can get off to a good start? It's like you and I, Andreanna, that when we go to an environment and people say Scrum is not working, in most cases, it's because they hadn't been trained properly. And from the not so good side of safe, could it be the companies or whoever trying to implement this trying to take shortcuts? And so we just going to read what's online and implement it. We don't need no SPCs. SPCs, who would that be? That would be a person like myself. That would be a safe program consultant. Many years ago, I thought I wanted to be in this environment and I was getting ready to take another job at a finance company. So I'm getting prepared because they use the scaled agile framework. So I said, well, the environment I'm in now uses pure Scrum, and I don't know anything about scaled agile framework. So I figured I'd go take a class. And I did my research. I said, if this is going to be something that's going to be around for years, I actually want to get to a level where I can teach it. So I went and drove down 5 hours down to Atlanta. I took a 4-day class to become a SPC, a safe program consultant, which gives me the ability to teach most of the classes that they have. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen? I never have taught one class. Because after I went to that financial institution, my first experience with this, I didn't like it. It seemed very prescriptive. It seemed to go against the first value of the Agile Manifesto, which means individuals and interactions over processes and tools. It just felt like I was back in project management. And that's the world I left to come over into Scrum and Agile. But I figured, hey, maybe it's just this company. That was a financial institution. And then I went to work for a contractor for the government, a big contractor in Washington, D.C. area. They use scaled agile framework. So, okay, well, maybe the financial institution was doing it wrong. So I go over here. They had SBCs like myself, and I went into that environment. I had the same feeling. I didn't really care for it. Then after that, I tried it one more time. This time it was in manufacturing. So I said, okay, well, maybe manufacturers doing this thing right. No, in all three places, in all three experiences, I had the same feeling. This don't feel right. This don't feel like my Scrum foundational knowledge. Now check this out, ladies and gentlemen. You know the first day of class where I thought I was at? When they teach you scaled frameworks, the first thing you're gonna do is go to the Scrum guide. Did you know that? The first day of class is all about looking at the Scrum guide and dissecting the Scrum guide. So all these platforms, first of all, assume that you're doing Scrum right first before you can build something on top of that. And if you're not doing Scrum right first, then you just what? Scaling junk. And I think those are some of the pros and the cons, the goods and the bad. Andronna, what are your thoughts?
In my experience, I went from startup to working on a Scrum team at Nike and then going to a different department that was using Safe. Now, I felt like it was very rigid. I will say I did learn a lot because then I went to Amazon and worked in an organization that had no structure. So I was able to pull some of those things to make sure that we have a checkpoint. I wasn't really a fan of the all day big team planning. I think you do have to know where your roadmap is, what's been removed, what needs to be added. You do need those checks and balances to make sure that what you're working on is actually meeting your company goals and so forth. But we were doing that in like 2 hours. People actually do the legwork, get everything started, and then over time, we have these checks and balances to make sure that we're all good. It taught me a little bit about structure. Would I implement the whole thing as it previously was? No, I think it's, in my opinion, it's a bit overkill, but I don't have necessarily strong dislike or love for it like some people do. All right. Do you want to add something? Anything else?
My final thoughts on that, Andronna, and listeners, is that again, as I mentioned, I've never taught a class. And every year as an SPC, I have to recertify. I have to pay some more money, $895. Typically, I pay that. And I don't worry about that because I still have my PMP, which I have to, pay money to keep that. I still have my Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, which I have to pay to do that. But this year, I let my SPC back in May expire. Why? Well, Scott, you're not going to use your PMP and your Lean Six Sigma anymore. Why'd you let SPC go? Well, think of it like this. I think of myself as a brand. I know I'm not going to teach one of those classes because I don't believe in it. I don't particularly want to work in any of those environments. It goes against everything that I stand for. And those voices in my head just won't let me stay in that environment. And the other thing I would say is this since I think of myself as a brand, I don't want to associate myself with something that people are talking about negatively. Do you hear people talking negatively about Scrum the way you hear about some of these other frameworks? I just personally just don't want to be associated with nothing like that kind of talk, because I think it's hard enough for us to make change out here when things are positive. Sure, people are going to always have something bad to say about anything. But some of the comments, if you got a whole website on a thing talking about all the problems there are out there, that's for me as a personal opinion, not something I want to associate myself. That's how I arrived to my decision. But again, we're here just to give you information so that you can make your own decision. Andriana,
Yeah, that's correct. So thanks for watching this episode. If you made it to the end, that means you have an attention span greater than a goldfish.
be legendary, everyone, but not Scrum Dumb.